Hello, this is Gavin Patterson from Studio 1790, and in today's video we're going to talk about compressors. So we're going to talk about just the initial basics of different types of compressors and what they do. So we'll go right into Cubase and I'll show you a couple of examples. So I've got a bit of drum recording here. Just all I'm going to show you is a snare drum to start off with, and I've got 4 types of compressors loaded in here. So the reason I've used these 4 is because these 4 plugins are digital versions of real life compressors. So we'll start with this one up here. So this is an emulation of a compressor. It's called a FET compressor. This particular one is the Waves CLA 76. So it's based on the blue face, so the little blue square there, 1176 compressor, which was, I think it came out in the 1960s. It's quite a famous compressor on vocals and snare drum. It's been used a lot. So we've got that one. So that's a FET compressor. FET stands for Field Effect Transistor. So I'm not going to go into the details of that because it's overly complicated for this video. So the next one, this one here, this is the LA2A, which is an optical compressor. An optical compressor, the way it works, obviously this is a plugin, so it's not real, technically real. So it's in the computer. But the real version, the counterpart to this, the way it works is the sound that travels, through the electrical wire into the compressor gets converted to light, and then you have a light detector inside it. And the way the compressor works is it compresses based on how much light the detector picks up. So that's why it's called optical, because it's actual visual light that does the information transference. Rather than voltage, it actually converts it to light. So it gives you a different flavor, a different style of compression. Again, a little bit overly complex for this video, but it gives you a different sound. So that's the LA2A. Here we've got the SSL G master bus compressor. So this one is your typical. You'll see this type of compressor most often. This is a VCA style compressor. That's voltage. I can't remember what VCA stands for, but it's voltage dependent. So again, the real version of this would use voltage to determine how much it's going to compress a signal, rather than light or using transistors. This is using voltage. So before we go into the controls of each one, I'm going to show you the last one. So this is a tube compressor. So this is a lot older, this style of compressor. This is based on a Fairchild compressor from, I think, the late 50s, maybe mid 50s, something like that. So it's got a valve or a tube in it, the same as you would have in a guitar amp. And this has its own unique flavor. This actually distorts if you push it too hard, and I'll show you that in a minute. So what I'll do, actually, what I've done before I started recording this video, I got each of these plugins to roughly the same sound, to try and get the same sound out of the snare drum. But take a listen to each one and you'll hear the characteristics of each one. So I'm going to start with the 1176, then I'm going to go this one, the 2A, then I'm going to go the SSL, then I'm going to go the Fairchild. So we'll start with the 76 and I'll let you hear this. Okay, that's it turned off. Back on. Okay, we're going to move to the 2.8. It's very different. And off. Back on. And off. Okay, now the SSL. Off. Back on. And now the Fairchild. Off. Okay, so that's quite revealing. So from what I heard, this one has got the most punch. This one is probably second punchiest. I would say this one and this one sound very similar to my ear. This one, when I engage this one, I noticed like all the bottom end of the snare drum disappears. So I'll show you. So this is the 76. And then turn up a bit. To me, the 76 just sounds much punchier. This one sounds thin. So that's the optical compressor. And this one, you'll notice it really distorts. If you're wearing a good set of headphones or you're listening on speakers, you'll be able to hear this. So I'll turn it on. I'll compare it between this and the 76. '76 Fairchild. It sounds crunchier. So they've got the emulation right, because it would crunch. A real version of that would actually crunch because of the tube. So we'll go into the specifics. So we'll start with the 76. Now these, obviously, when you look at the graphics on this, the graphics on each EQ, they look like the real thing. They're very similar looking, very similarly laid out. So we'll go through this and I'll maybe show you a digital compressor to compare, but it's the same basic function. So here's the 76. So because this is a FET compressor. Now this one comes in two versions. So there's the black face and the blue face. They're exactly the same controls, as you can see, but they have a different sound. So I'll just let you hear that. Okay, that's the blue. Black. So the blue is much more intense sounding. So first things first, you have a big input and output knob right in the front. The input is just the signal that is going into the plugin. The output is, as you might imagine, the output volume of the plugin. So that's after it's been compressed. So input gain and output gain. With this plugin, if you want more, if you want to hit the compressor harder, you put the input up. The output doesn't affect the compressor. The output is just the volume that you want the signal to be after it's been compressed. So that's it. Then we move over here, we've got attack and release. So attack means how quickly the compressor will engage. So if the attack, now I think the attack in this case is the opposite of what you think. So if I press play just now, okay. So this plugin, if I remember right, the 1176, the attack knob is the opposite of a VCA style like this one. So it's a bit counterintuitive. So the smaller the number, like 1, the longer the attack is. If you put it up to 7, that's shorter, which is like you would think it would be the other way around. But so what that means is if I put that to 1, that means that it is letting it's not compressing the sound as fast as it maybe could. Now, this compressor is famous for being really, really fast. Now, what I mean by fast is, for example, I'll show you, I'll close all these just now, and we'll go in on a snare drum. I've shown this before in previous videos. So I've talked about transients. The reason why I'm using a snare drum as an example is because a snare drum's a good way of finding out how fast a compressor can act. So you see here, there's nothing going on here. That's in between snare hits, and then suddenly, boom, you've got a snare hit. A drum has a really fast transient. It's like sound, whereas a violin might be rather than da. So you need if you want a compressor to hit this really quickly, you want to use a compressor like this, because this plugin will engage as soon as that transient hits it. Whereas a plugin like that, like this one, this tube style, they're a lot slower. So what will happen is this transient will escape the compressor and come out the speakers before the compressor engages, and you'll get this pointy sounding snare drum, which you might not want. If you listen to some drum recordings, the Beatles, for example, Ringo Starr's sound basically is based around this. So what if you listen to the drum solo, for example, on, I think it's The End, which is an Abbey Road album, there's a drum solo, and a lot of us, like any drum parts in a lot of the Beatles stuff, when he hits the drum, you will hear the attack of the signal. You'll really hear the transients, because they didn't have compressors back then necessarily, or they weren't using them, that attacked those transients. They allowed some of it through. Just it was part of the sound. So that kind of Ringo sound comes from that. But more modern sounds usually come from this guy. So if I put this up to 7, it becomes even faster. So it lets none of that punch through. So I'll put it to 1. You're getting that immediate whack. But if I put that up to 7, it becomes wah, wah, because it's softening that transient at the start, because this compressor is so quick to respond. I'll show you what that sounds like. See, it softens it up so much just by putting up full. I like to have a little bit of punch through, so I leave it at 1, but it's still super fast, even though it's on the lowest setting, and that's why I like using it. So I just leave it at 1 all the time. Release is how long the compressor remains engaged after the signal has hit. So at the moment, I've got it at the shortest release, meaning that it doesn't compress as long as it maybe could. So if I put this to 1, if you look at this needle here, so it's jumping back up to 0 quite quick. I'll put it to 1 and it'll probably take longer. See that? It never gets back to 0 there. That's it going back now. So that took ages. So I don't want that, because for snare drum, I want it to be really dynamic and in my face. I want it to be bah. I don't want it to be subdued. So if I flip these around the other way, all the punch is gone. There's a good example. That's horrible. So all that's doing is it's whacking, it's squashing that first initial hit and then allowing the snare drum to breathe afterwards. It's not crushing it to bits. That's what the release time does in this case. Okay, we'll move on to ratio. Ratio is how much compression are you applying. That's what that means. And it's the same for all plugins. When you see ratio, that's what it means. So I've got it at 4 just now. So you can go 4, 8, 12, 20, or all. That's like all the buttons pressed in. So these are ratios. So it's like 4 to 1, 8 to 1, 12 to 1, 20 to 1. So we'll see what that sounds like. So you could hear how aggressive that was when I pressed all. It's too much. 4 slightly softer. The ratio, depending on what you're compressing, sometimes I use a higher ratio depending on what I'm compressing. With snare drum, it's usually 4 to 1 I go for. It lets the drum breathe. You don't want to stifle it. You don't want to compress it too much. So that's the basics of this plugin. So you've got your input into the plugin, output out of the plugin, your attack, release, and ratio. That's it. It's literally that simple. Now all of this stuff, this is just irrelevant nonsense. So what this does, if you listen to this, I'll shut up for a second. I'll click this one. Now this one. You probably hear a hiss. I'll maybe increase the gain on the video. It introduces noise into the signal. Why you would want that, I have no idea. It's pointless. I think it's because this machine had, obviously because it's a real machine, it has noise and it introduces noise into your signal chain. But I always turn that off, because why would you want noise? It makes no sense. So, and you can also adjust what the meter reads. So at the moment it's gain reduction. So with this, when this needle goes down, what it's telling you is it's reducing the volume of the loudest part of the signal. Yes, it's hitting -7. So that's -7 decibels of gain reduction. That's what GR means. So there's your gain reduction. If I go to in, that's measuring the input signal, and that's the output signal. And then that button there just turns it off. Yeah, so that's just how these buttons on the right just show you, what this needle is going to tell you. So we'll move on to the 2A. This is a simple plugin, really simple plugin. So it's kind of similar. It's made by the same company, so you can see the added noise thing. So compress limit. So that's essentially your ratio. That's you setting your ratio. There are only 2 ratios on this. Compress. I actually don't know what the ratio is when it's set to compress. I need to look that up. I'm not actually sure. I may or may not write down on the video right now telling you what it is after I research it. But limit means that limiting means maximum ratio. So that's what that means, and I'll write that down as well so you can look. So this has gain and peak reduction. So it's the other way around. Peak reduction is similar to the 76. That is your input. So that is how much you are compressing. So you use this knob to, it's like a threshold. It's increasing the gain into the compressor, and the more you feed into it, the more it will compress. And then the gain, that's just the output. So it's after it's been compressed, how much is coming out. So it's kind of backwards. It doesn't have attack and release. The attack and release of this plugin is set. You can't change it. It's just, you get what you're given. That's it. So it's got limitations, this plugin, but it's actually really nice. It's great on vocals, this one. There is also another version of this CLA 3A that I have, which is exactly the same, but it's a different color. So that's the difference. No, this one has, I assume, a different attack and release. So this one has a slightly different sound as well. So you can use this one, you know, where this one might not work, maybe give this one a try. And it's just different flavors. So this one's really simple. You can't really go wrong with it. I'll let you hear that again just to remind you. So yeah. So I put that to 0. Get rid of that. So that means there's no compression. That's max compression. Stick on limit. Wow. So yeah, it can be really, really harsh, but you can also use it really subtly as well. And then the gain is just the output. That's just your output volume after it's already been compressed. Now, I don't know why they're that way around. I would say the peak reduction should be on that side and the gain should be on this side, but I don't know. It just is. So next, starting to get a wee bit more complicated now. So this is the compressor you'll see most often. There's your threshold, makeup, attack, release. So we've seen them before. Ratio, and ignore that. That's a thing that the SSL has. That's a fade out setting. So if I press play, I set that to say 6. Click that. There you go. Fade out. So it's a fade out button, and then you can set the time of the fade out. Now, most compressors don't have that. That's just a funny little thing that this thing has. Then there's an analog button. I imagine that introduces noise or something for some weird reason. So again, threshold, that's just the same as this. Peak reduction, which is also the same as this. So it's just threshold. At which point or at which set volume or level will it start to compress. So that's how to think of it. It increases the gain into the plugin. You know, the point at which it starts to bite. Makeup, that is just gain, output, output. Makeup or output or gain. So that's the level that comes out of the compressor. That's all that means. And then you've got attack and release, same thing. Now, I think these are backwards compared to the 1176. Yeah. So it's in milliseconds. So it actually shows you the time, whereas in this, these are just arbitrary numbers, I think. I don't think they correspond to anything. I think just 1 means low, 7 means high. So in this one, in the 76, if you put it to 1, that is the equivalent of putting this to 30. If you put this one to 7, that's the equivalent of putting this one to 1 or -1. Makes sense, right? Nope. No, it's 0.1. So when you put this thing to 30 milliseconds, hit play, it's a slower attack. 0.1, faster attack. So you can hear it. it's squashing the signal really fast as soon as it comes out the gate. Put it there, it allows the signal out a bit. It allows a little bit of snare drum out before it starts to compress. So yeah, it's the opposite. Release, I've got it set to auto because I just do. I think auto is based on once it drops below a certain volume inside the plugin, it then disengages the compressor automatically based on a threshold of volume. So you don't have to worry about it. Or you can set it to a time. So I'll set it to the shortest time. Fine. Pretty boring. Yeah, so if you put it up to the highest setting on the snare, 1.2 seconds, the snare drum suddenly starts to sound really boring. It's holding on, it's compressing for too long. I want it to be more punchy, so I shorten the release time. Lovely. That is again, the opposite of this one. The opposite of this one makes sense. Yeah, you get used to it. So this one only has 3 ratios you can choose from: 2:1, 4:1, and 10:1. So 2:1, let's see what that sounds like. 4, 10. So the ratio, again, the ratio is just the amount of compression. Pretty straightforward. 2, you can actually hear the difference here. 2, 4, 4's nice. 10. Yeah, it's nice on 4. 10's too much, I think, in this case. So that's that. So you start to see similarities. Now we'll move on to the last one. This is same thing. So this one you'll see input, threshold. It's in stereo. So the way this works, this one up here, I imagine, is left, and that's right. And you can link them. So you can turn the link off and you can move them independently. Or, how do I undo? I can't undo. Oh well. Click on stereo link and then the two of them move together so they can move in stereo together. See? Pretty cool. So that means I can compress the left-hand side more than the right-hand side, which is pretty nifty. And this one's got a mix knob, which is nice, so that you can do parallel compression. So I can compress using the plugin and then put it to 50%. So I'm having 50% dry signal, 50% compressed. So that's a nice wee added thing without you having to set up a complicated thing in Cubase. So we'll listen to this one. And then you've got mid-side as well. So stereo literally just means left and right. Mid-side means it compresses the mono information and stereo information separately. So, for example, if you've got a snare drum that's mono, one mic in the middle, pan center, that's your mid. Sides would be like if you've got 2 overhead mics panned left and right, that's stereo information. So that would be compressed separately. There's benefits of doing things like that. You can use mid sides in drums because usually kick and snare are mid, and all the other stuff like toms and hi-hats and rides and all that is side. So you might not necessarily want to compress your side as hard as the center. You might want the center to be really compressed and punchy, but the side you want it to be nice and airy, so you might want to keep the compression to a minimum. So that's a cool little control that you can have on that the other ones don't have. So again, you've got your attack and release, and I think on this one, okay, so this is the same as this one, I think it's the same as this one. So the lower the number, the faster the attack. Yeah. But if you put this one on 0, that's its fastest setting, which is probably equivalent to this one, which is the longest one. So this is really slow. This is really, really slow. Even on its lowest setting, its shortest setting, it's still not anywhere near as quick as this one. This one on its longest one is the equivalent of this one on its shortest one, just because it's based on really old gear. It's just not very fast, just the way it works, tube compressor. And I think the release will be the same. So that's 5. It's hard to tell actually. Okay, yeah. So 0 is fast, 5 is long. Yeah, as you would expect. So it's the same as this one. But there's actually not that much difference between them. So this one's got a couple of extra controls that you might not have seen before. Again, here's your meter selection. So that is the same as this one. So that if you flick this, that just changes the meter to, so that's input, that's measuring the input volume, gain reduction, GR. That is telling you how much the compressor is compressing, same as this, GR. And then out, that's the output, same as this one over here. So that's after the makeup gain. So there you've got makeup gain, same as this one, makeup gain. So that's your output, or your output, like so on this one. Threshold, this one's got a threshold as well. Threshold is so this one has input threshold and output. So that's kind of cool. So you've got your input signal into the compressor, then you can mess around with your threshold, and then you've got your output. This one's got a high-pass filter. And one of the other ones did, I think, and I didn't mention it. Yeah, this one, the 2A, has one. That's one here. So this is high frequency. That's a low-pass filter. So what that does is it, in this case, high-pass filter, this filters out low frequency, so frequencies 200 and below, depending on where you put it. It doesn't route it to the plugin. Meaning, if you've got a compressor that is compressing away and something's not sounding right, it could be because maybe like a kick drum, which has got low frequency information, is affecting your compressor where you maybe don't want it to. So if you've got this on a master bus on your final, like something, you're mixing your whole song through it, you want the compressor to be engaged by maybe mid frequencies or high frequencies. You leave this thing, if you leave this thing off, it might not do that because the low frequency information might force it to compress, and you don't want that. So you put that up to 200 and all of the low frequency information just passes straight through the plugin without being compressed and leaves everything above 200 Hertz to make the compressor move. So I'll show you what that sounds like on the master bus of this drum kit. So that is the FGMU, that one there. And I'll show you what it sounds like. So, oh, listen to that distortion, it's crazy. Okay. Right, that's, see when the kick drum goes, that needle goes crazy. Now, see the bass drum's coming through more? If you listen in the headphones, the bass drum sounds cleaner. There you go. Hear that? So you can hear, as soon as I engage this, when I put it up to 200, the bass drum comes through and it doesn't affect it. When I put it back down to off here, you can hear the bass drum ducking and it's pulling, sucking all the information because it's going through the compressor and the compressor's compressing the entire thing almost at the whim of the bass drum. The bass drum is forcing everything else to be compressed. So you might not want that. So that is what that is for. And then you've got your mix knob. I'll show you what that sounds like. That's dry. Full. So you can get a blend of the dry signal with the compressed signal. That's quite cool. Oh. Haha. God, that's dirty. That's disgusting. I don't recommend you do that with a real Fairchild. You might set it on fire. But this is a plug-in, so we're fine. So yeah, that is kind of all I wanted to talk about compressors. Before we finish up the video, I'll maybe show you one. As you can see, I've got thousands of compressors. It's not good. Yeah, I'll maybe go with this one. Yeah, here's just a typical digital kind of thing. So this is, you've got your threshold, ratio, attack, release, gain. I have no idea what this is. Opto. Ah, okay. Electro, opto. So optical, which is that one. Electro, no idea. Well, electro, that'll be like VCA, probably voltage, which is that one. So it may give you a different sound. So it's like an emulated thing. Smooth, warm, no idea what that means. Manual, arc, I don't know. Let's press play, see what it does. Okay. Ooh. So you can get a sound out of this. This is just a, so this doesn't exist in real life. This is just a digital compressor, not based on anything particular. It's just it's the Waves R Renaissance compressors. Quite old actually. It's like 15 years old now. So yeah, like what I was showing you there was just kind of all the different sounds you can do with it, and it's exactly the same as all of these ones. But these are all based in real life things, real life machines. But yeah, that's kind of an introduction to plugins. So why would I use this one instead of this one or this one or that one? Taste, basically. It's all, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of taste. So it basically just depends on what you like. Just experiment with them. If you've got a couple of plugins in your arsenal, some stock plugins, have a mess around with them. You might prefer the sound of one to another. Even if you set them the same, you might go, I like that one over that one. So I quite like the sound of some of them. But it depends on the song as well. You might go, this song maybe calls for one of these compressors. Or it just depends. It's like EQ. You get to know your tools and you just get used to it. But I'm going to leave it there. If anyone has any questions on compressors or wants anything else explained, let me know in the comments section. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, and make sure to hit the notification bell if you want to receive updates on future videos. But like I said, if you have any questions on this complicated stuff, please leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.